Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Hesed Sabbath Fellowship. We are not meeting right now. The building is locked. I'm sorry. That's we rent, and that's the nature of this. So please don't show up until we announce that we've opened again. This series is always the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know in the end times, what's your reality, why were you born for such a time as this. I try not to give you disparate information. I try to make it logical so that you can understand it. Sometimes I'm going deep into the Greek and the Hebrew, but you know what? You're getting the gist of what I'm talking about. Today we're leading up to the Antichrist. We're trying to name some of the players. We're looking at Daniel 11 and figuring out who the players are, who the wars are, because it's starting to take shape. And we'll see if you agree with me or not. So first of all, the directions. Right now, I believe it's the green horse, which is south, based on the directions of Revelation chapter 6 of these seals. And so I believe that in 2011, back in January of 2011, there were protests in Egypt. And Mubarak was there, and they were protesting against him, and these protests were erupting against him in Cairo. And then in February of 2011, the green horse, this is a precursor, not the actual green horse opening up, but it's a precursor to it. You saw it in the picture on the left-hand side here. It just kind of galloped off. Now, you could say it's an optical illusion, but it was very, very interesting to see a green horse erupting south of Israel during that time frame as everything was being kicked off. So this is the hornet time when Clinton and Obama were kicking all sorts of hornets' nests. So then on 10/20 of 2011, Gaddafi was murdered in Sirte by the Clintons and Obamas on Shemini Atzeret. I'm arguing that it's a sacrifice, a literal sacrifice on that day. He had to die that day. It was his day to die. Then on 6 of 2012, Morsi was elected the leader. Then on 7/12, in my eschatology, the third seal opened up based on a man that prophesied accurately based on 1 Kings 12. Then on 7/20/13, Morsi was ousted. There were more riots. Then al-Sisi took power. He's the leader right now, but he was forced into it by all the disruptions that the Clintons and Obamas did. Okay, it's 2020 right now. We're waiting for the fourth seal, the deaths of 1.944 billion. But once again, I believe the Clintons and the Obama offered Gaddafi as a Sukkot sacrifice because it was odd that he would die on that day of all days. It's funny that I didn't notice it back then either. So the directions. There are horses listed in Zechariah 1, but then also in 6, it gives the directions. The west horse is the Acharith horse, that's behind you, that's west of you. Then the east is the other horse, and then north, and then south. And so they're the directions of those four horses based on the color. So white is west, east is red, north is black, and south is green. And that's what we're heading into right now. We're heading into that south color. And we'll explain that more later on. So watch the South, the green horse, blame Hillary and Obama. He may be the seventh leader. We'll see what happens with that. But keep in mind, she said, we came, we saw, he died, and he died as a sacrifice on 10/20 of 2011 during the last day when Yeshua gets up during, I want to say it's Matthew 7. No, I'm blanking on it right now. It's probably John. And he says, all you that are thirsty, come to me for living water. And that's on Shemini Atzeret. So all these nations are moving towards Libya right now. And Sirte is where Gaddafi was murdered. And this is the dividing line where you've got Egypt saying, you will go no further, Libya saying, you will go no further, Turkey saying, we're going to go wherever we want to go. And I'm saying that based on Daniel 11:32 through 45, this all matters. Oh, by the way, I want you to look at one other thing. This is by Don't Speak. So just be aware of that in case you want to watch. It's a 2.5-minute video, so it's rather cool. So Hal Turner, I think he's a Nazi, but you know what? This is an interesting report. He's saying the battle has started. Eastern-based Libya parliament asks Egypt to intervene in the war. And so you're going to see potentially World War III. The directions work, guys. They really, really work. So once again, Clinton laughing about the fact that she kicked off what I think could be World War III. We'll see. So the nations that are for this Khalifa Haftar that runs Libya right now, he was forced in there by the Clintons and Obama. So he is in Libya from Tripoli running things, and then you've got these other sides that are fighting. So you've got Saudi Arabia that's pro-Haftar, UAE rather, the United Arab Emirates are pro-Haftar. Egypt obviously is, the United States is, and then France and Russia. Italy is neutral, but Turkey and Qatar are against this. And Turkey's basically against everything right now because they want to run the world. And so As I stated one more time, Muammar Gaddafi was killed in 2011, and that kicked off all this mess that we're seeing right now in 2020. This is by military.com. They're saying there are Russians in there too. Now, why would Russia care about this stuff? Why would they be in Syria? Why would they be in any of these countries? Well, China's going in too. China wants oil. So right now, China's cutting a deal with Iran to get all the oil sent to China because no one else can take their oil right now because of the sanctions by the US. So in this case, this is going to be Russia coming into these other countries to make sure that they can move their oil through. So if there's a pipeline, they don't want Israel to have a pipeline. They want to have the pipeline. They want to control it. And other people like Turkey want to make the money off that. So this shows on the other side here, on the right-hand side, that all these countries are involved in this. They're all having problems right now. Somalia, East Africa, the African Union, all Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Cameroon are all having violence, horrible violence. And it was really kicked off by Bush in the first place over the oil wars. Uh, choose your Bush. And then now by Clinton and Obama. And so Russia's involved because they want to sell oil and they want to pipe oil to the people that are using oil. So they have to play in this. So as always, I try to give you the biblical answers. I try not to play around with prophecy at all. And there's modern day prophecy. And it takes forever to check that out. And then what's the news? So let's go back a long, long time ago and let's look at Daniel 7:7 and set up what I think is occurring right now. So after this, I looked in the night visions, and there before me was a fourth animal. That's Rome, dreadful, horrible, extremely strong, and with great iron teeth. It devoured, crushed, and stamped its feet on what was left. It was different from all the animals that had gone before it, and it had 10 horns. You'll see 10 kingdoms at the end. And I'm saying that these are the four kingdoms that have been listed. This is the fourth one, Rome, and it's just a beast of some sort. It doesn't really describe it as being, say, a lion with wings or a bear or a Greece, which would be a leopard, okay, or Germany for that matter too. You know, England, Russia, you know, Germany, and then the beast is still Rome. And then now we move on to Daniel 2, and I want to list it backwards, Daniel 7, then Daniel 2, because it gives you extra information about this fourth kingdom moving into the fifth kingdom. Okay, so the fourth kingdom, Rome, will be as strong as iron. Iron can break anything into pieces, pulverize it, and crush it. So just as iron can crush anything, this kingdom will break the other kingdoms into pieces and crush them. Finally, you saw the feet and toes made partly of pottery clay and partly of iron. This will be a divided kingdom. So you've got Rome west and you've got Byzantine east, yet it will have some of the firmness of iron, okay, as these kingdoms move along. And you'll see that historically speaking in just a moment. Since you saw the iron mixed with clay from the ground, just as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. Now, I'm moving to the KJV here because it says it exactly the way I want to say it. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Who's the they? Is that the fallen angels? Is that, I don't know, guys. It's a very interesting way of stating it, and they're the only ones. So there's our figurine in the middle there, and then off to the left here, I want to show you that as we move along, you're going to have this great schism occurring at 1050, 1053, 1054, during that time frame, okay? And so let's look at the Daniel 2 and Daniel 7 vision in terms of you've got the Daniel 2, which shows us the statue, which he eventually builds, okay? And the four kingdoms and the four leaders. Keep in mind, each kingdom has a powerful leader. So Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus, Alexander, Caesar. And so as we move through the kingdoms, we see that then we move into Justinian I, the last Roman. As we move forward from 70 AD, we move to 560, and he's the last Roman at 560, and that's 490 years later, which is Daniel 9, 24 through 27. Then we move to that schism that I talked about, the leg splitting, and that's in 1050. Then we move to sealing the Eastern Gate for only the Messiah in 1540. And then by 1540 to 2030, we move towards the final beast. So these kingdoms and these leaders, keep in mind, Justinian I was that fifth leader technically. Okay, then Pope Benedict caused the split, and that would be the sixth, and then Suleiman the Magnificent might be the seventh, and whatever else. I don't know. I mean, we'll show you the verses later on, and we'll see what you think. But keep in mind, leaders, kingdoms, leaders, kingdoms. Okay, so let's also take you back a thousand, 1,500 years ago, and let's go to the meeting point between East and West, and let's consider here is Sophia, which is wisdom, and in this case, this would be Hagia Sophia in the Greek tongue. And so Hagia Sophia would be holy wisdom, and that's the capital of the Eastern Orthodox Church as they kind of moved away from Rome and then went Eastern Orthodox as they split. So they built this building back in 432. They completed it in 462, and it was done by not Constantine, but Justinian I, the last Roman, and then they ruled until 1453, and so that's 481 years. Then after that, the Muslims, the Turks, the Ottomans, controlled Hagia Sophia. And now they want to turn it into a mosque again because Turkey just wants to do things. They want to thumb their noses at people all over the world right now. So in terms of players, Turkey is doing this. The Pope weighed in, not very strongly though. Keep in mind, I think Hagia Sophia, and I'm very saddened, but he's not doing anything about it. And according to Sadhu Sundar Severage, Pope Francis is the false prophet of Revelation. That has nothing to do with my Catholic friends. That has everything to do with what Pope Francis is doing. So Hagia Sophia, this is important. Once again, I said it was started in 532. It was finished in 562. It survived nearly 1,000 years during the Dark Ages until 1453. It was the greatest cathedral in Eastern Orthodoxy. Okay, the Caliphate Ottomans came in then in 1453, and they ruled it 481 years after that. And then it became more of just a museum of some sort. So it's very interesting to see the history behind it. Then now, as Erdogan comes in from Turkey, he wants to restore the caliphate. He wants to dominate the Hagia Sophia. Then he wants to go into Jerusalem and take over the Al-Aqsa. And so he has stated openly he wants to liberate the Al-Aqsa Mosque. He wants to first resurrect the Hagia Sophia as of last Friday. He did that. That's July 11th. And so I'm saying he may be player number two. He may be the king of the north. He seems to be fitting into that mold. We'll see. Maybe Putin is, maybe another man is, but we'll see. And so obviously Turkey has their sights on not just Libya, not just Egypt, not just Israel, not just, I mean, it's all over the place, guys. This is Erdogan. But he seems to be the king of the north, and he wants to dominate everywhere. This is from Forbes, and they're saying that they think, and this is as of July 9th, that you're going to see a major conflict between Turkey and Egypt in Libya. And it's just one more proof source that people are noticing this. And you should notice the war. The problem is in America, we don't get a good amount of international news. You have to really dig around for it. And so what's going on in terms of the United States and Libya is that Trump is not going to do anything at all because he realizes this is an election year. If he goes into Libya and gets whacked around, he's going to look sick and weak. And so he's going to leave it alone. So that means Libya's on their own. That means Turkey's on their own. Egypt is on their own. All these players, the caliphate either is going to form or not. And is it like the sixth version of Egypt that they're fighting against? I don't know. But the main thing is this battle is going to be left alone because Trump may lose this election, and he definitely would lose this election if this war would go badly. So he's not going in there. Plus, I don't think he really wants to go in there. He knows how messy it is. Let's also play off one other thing. When I said the Hagia Sophia, that's near this little red line that shows Istanbul. Okay, so that's formerly Constantinople. And so according to the Vilna Gaon, so he's the great one, Gaon, and he's the leader, Vilna. When you hear the Russians have captured the city of Crimea, which happened, oh goodness, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on when they captured it. It should have been, I think, 2014. You should know that the times of the Messiah have started and the steps are being heard. And when you hear that the Russians have reached the city of Constantinople, today's Istanbul, you should put on your Shabbos clothes and don't take them off because it means the Messiah is about to come at any minute. I just wanted to cite that he was 77 when he prophesied this during his death year. And so here's where he was born. He was born on Pesach 2 and, 15 Nisan, 5480. And then he died in 1797 at the age of 77. And I want to show you two other neat guys that I just love that were 77 years of age when they died, and they were involved in prophecy. Here is Shlomo Goren. He died at 77, and he blew the trumpet, the shofar, and carried the Torah scrolls up to the Temple Mount in 1967 during the Six-Day War. And then Judah ben Samuel, who set up these last 10 jubilees, the prophecy about that. He prophesied at age 77 in 1217. Very interesting people. So just keep in mind, 77 is very big. Sevens are everywhere in Revelation. So let's look at Russia. We have to look at why they want to come down here and what's going on with the blood moon eclipses. Okay, because that plays into this. According to my theory, Russia has been forced to move down because the pole, the North Pole, not the actual geographic North Pole, the magnetic North Pole is moving very, very quickly towards Mother Russia. So they're realizing we're going to get cold, and also we need warm water ports, plus we need to be able to move our oil. So we're going to go down during the blood moon eclipses of 2014. During that time frame, they moved down and they conquered Crimea, okay, in April of 2014. Okay, and then, so that matches up with that prophecy from the Vilna Gaon. And then the next step that they took is getting closer to Jerusalem, because then by the end of 2015, during the last blood moon over Jerusalem, they moved into Syria, which is only 261 miles away from Jerusalem. And this is according to Ray Bentley. So I agree with him. Absolutely. This is blood moon related. It seems to be Russia moving down and setting up more stuff going on in the Middle East, more players, okay? And so then Russia doesn't like Turkey because Turkey wants to dominate. They're the Ottomans, and Russia wants the oil business. They want to dominate. So it's two egos at play. So this is according to this article on the left-hand side. Turkey, we once knew that was going Western, no longer exists. So they're buying weaponry from Russia, and they're modifying it too. And whatever they're doing, they're a bully towards the EU. They are not NATO anymore. They're not acting like NATO. So this is an article from July 16th. And so it really says we're going to lose Turkey. First, Turkey is changing fast. And then Erdogan he knows what he's doing. He knows that if he's anti-American, anti-European, and anti-Semitic, he's going to be very popular in Turkey. He wants to run the Ottoman Empire. He wants to be the king of the north. And so for 5 centuries, they were the seat of the caliphate, and the Ottoman Sultan was viewed as the leader of the Muslim world. He wants that. He wants the power. He wants the prestige. He has the ego to play that. And so once again, during the blood moon time frame, Moscow moved down to Sevastopol, which is the Crimea, took it over, and really nobody said a word about it. But now the next phase is to head down here through the Dardanelles and get into Syria and set up their warm water ports and dominate in these regions. So Russia does not want to be stopped because they see, and you can see in the middle of this picture, that the magnetic North Pole was heading towards North America. Now it's heading very quickly towards Russia. And so they're going to start freezing, and they need to move south. They're being forced south, and they have a powerful military. So Turkey hates Russia. Russia hates Turkey. They've been in wars before. Turkey wants the caliphate. Turkey is in the way of Russia's movements. And they're both powerful nations, but I would not want to fight with Russia because they are very technologically savvy. So the other things at play are these sevens going on. So Shemitahs, sevens. 2001 seems to be a Shemitah. We had the financial crash then. 2008 we had a Shemitah. And we had another financial crash then on the head of the year. Then in 2015, nothing really happened. We had the lunar eclipses, which seemed to signify that Russia was moving south. But then 2016 to 2017, we should have had a Jubilee year based on all the trends that have been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. That seemed to be the Jubilee year. Really, nothing occurred. Then in 2023, we should have another Shemitah year. And 2030 should be another Shemitah year. And so if you look way off to the right-hand side, you'll see 1897, the first Zionist Congress, 1917, Balfour, and many things happened that year. Then 1947, 48, we have Israel Reborn. 1967, the war. We just kind of expected things to kick off in 2017. I don't know when they're going to kick off, but they seem to be kicking off right now. We also have the interesting cows. They were born in 2014 at basically the head of the year. So if you added 7 years onto that, we're getting close to 2021, and that could kick off the Great Tribulation. So it could be 7 good years and 7 bad years. You never know. Um, so this man, Dov Ber Barleb, has an opinion that Gog Ben Gog, the Shemitah cycle, came and went without Geula, which is redemption by Yeshua, because too many of the enablers of the Gush were observant Jews. They successfully delayed the redemption, one or maybe a full Shemitah cycle. On the half of the Christian, half Muslim, iron, half clay. He's arguing that Christians and Muslims together are half iron, half clay. 11th horn dude from the book of Daniel, the abomination that makes desolation. So he's arguing something interesting compared to what I think I'm seeing. Then Gabriel, the angel, vows that at the very end of the book of Daniel that the last Shemitah cycle will not pass without Mashiach coming at the end of the last 7 years. So the seventh year, the sabbatical year, the Shemitah year begins in 6 months. This is a few years ago. And so we're still waiting for these things to happen. But it's interesting. He's looking at it. Many people are looking at this and trying to figure these things out. So now we're going to put the players together and start discussing them. And once again, I believe that Erdogan may be the king of the north. And his goal is to resurrect the caliphate, prepare for the Mahdi. That would be the Islamic Christ, we could call him, Messiah. He would also prepare for the false prophet, which wouldn't be a part of Muslim lore. Prepare for the Gog-Magog war against Israel, dominate the world. And then he believes that Jesus would return to kill the infidels, which would be the Christians and the Jews. And so who are these players? I'm saying, according to this young man, this Jewish boy, that Obama is Gog from Ezekiel 38:39. But then the Mahdi is from my progeny, and when he reappears, Jesus, the son of Mary, will descend to help him. He will follow the Mahdi and pray behind him. So that's Prophet Muhammad. So it's just interesting that there are these prophecies out there, and you just have to start watching them because they will intersect at some point in time. So let's look again at the players and maybe figure out where they're from. We have the two witnesses that pop up. They're good guys. We have the beast, and he is eventually burned. He's called a Therion in the Greek. We have the false prophet. Many believe it's Pope Francis. He's eventually burned also. He's also called a Therion. We have Gog. Many believe it's Barack Obama. He's buried in Israel. So he is not the Antichrist or the false prophet if he is Gog. And he's earthborn. We have the 10 kings. They are the possibly European kings that dominate during the end times. We have the king of the north, which we've been talking about. The king of the south, we haven't talked as much about that. The kings of the east, they come through late in Revelation 16. We have the king angel of the abyss, which is the fifth trumpet. We have the horse-like locusts that come from the abyss, and they look bizarre, you know. I mean, they have gold crowns, human faces, women's hair, lion's teeth, chests like iron, breastplates, roaring, winging sounds. I mean, they're scorpion tails, whatever. I don't know what they are. Then we have 200,000 cavalry soldiers that are going to come on the sixth trumpet, and they're the second woe to attack Israel. We also have the Illuminati. And so these are unseen human leaders, wicked humans. And then they will be the ones pushing this mark of the beast. So we have all of these players involved. Once again, I think that Pope Francis is the false prophet. Gog could be Obama. But we have these other players. And we don't know exactly who they are and where they're coming from. You know, where is the north? Where is the south? Where is the east? Who's the dragon? Things like that. And keep in mind, demons hide their identities. They don't want you to know they're a demon. They don't want to know, so we're going to have to discern very, very well. Now we're going to get into the Revelation text and compare it against Micah, just so you can see some of the texts that will go into Daniel after this. So, and this man shall be the peace when the Assyrian shall come into our land. So the Messiah should be our peace, our shalom, when the Assyrian comes. So who's the Assyrian? Could be the Antichrist. And when he shall tread in our palaces, then we shall raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 principal men, and they shall waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod. Nimrod is the first great leader, this horrible, wicked leader from Genesis 10 and 11. In the entrances thereof, thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he comes into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders, and the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people, as they do from the Lord, as the showers upon the grass, and tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. That's Micah 5 through 7. This should sound exactly like Revelation 17, 9 through 12. This calls from mind with wisdom. That's Sophia again. The seven heads are seven hills on which the woman is sitting. Also, they are seven kings. Five have fallen, one is living now, and the other is yet to come. When he does come, he must remain only a little while. The beast, which once was and now is an eighth king. It comes from the seven and is on its way to destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet begun to rule, but they receive power as kings for 1 hour, along with the beast. So these are these players that are going to pop up at the end times. And it's based on 7 heads, but an eighth. And you can see it back and forth between Micah and Revelation 17. Who are we talking about? And what are these kingdoms? And are we talking about overall kingdoms, or are we talking about there are many different leaders in them. So let's go in and read Daniel, just so you can see the verses. The king, we believe this is the Antichrist, will do as he pleases. He will exalt himself and consider himself greater than any god. He will utter monstrous blasphemies against the God of gods. He will prosper only until the period of wrath is over. That's where we're getting to almost. For what has been determined must take place. He will show no respect for the gods of his ancestors that they worshipped, or for the god women worship. It doesn't mean that he's gay. It just means that he doesn't worship like his ancestors and women worship. He won't show respect for any god because he will consider himself greater than all of them, but instead he will honor the god of strongholds. That's of male shaggy goats. It's Ma'uzim or Izim. I can't remember which one it is right now. But he will worship and honor the god of male shaggy goats. That's like saying Azazel from Leviticus 16, the Yom Kippur service. With gold, silver, precious stones, and other costly things, he will honor a god unknown to his ancestors. He will deal with the strongest fortresses, this male shaggy goat, with the help of a foreign god. He will confer honor on those who have not, who he acknowledges, causing them to rule over many and distributing land as a reward. When the time for the end comes, the king of the south, yes, is that Egypt? I don't know, will push at him. Now, they're already pushing out right now, but they will be pushing against the him being the Antichrist. But you're seeing some of these pushes right now. Then the king of the north, is that Erdogan? Is that Putin? Will attack him like a whirlwind. So these two kings are going to attack the Antichrist at some point in time. They're already starting to joust against each other. Okay, with chariots, cavalry, and a large navy, he will invade countries, overrun them, and move on. He will also enter the land of glory, that's Israel, and many countries will come to grief, but these will be saved from his power. Edom, Moab, and the people of Ammon. So that would be the south and west of Israel. He will also reach his hand to seize other countries too, the land of Egypt. Oh, so maybe the king of the south isn't Egypt because Egypt is listed separately. But the land of Egypt will not escape. He will control the treasuries of gold and silver as well as everything else in Egypt of value. Put, Libya, that's where the fight is right now, and Ethiopia will be subject to him. And there's a fight between Egypt and Ethiopia right now, where the countries south of Egypt are saying, we're going to dam up the Nile. And Egypt's saying, you can't do that. We exist because the Nile is there. You can't dam it up. So there are fights going on in these regions right now, just like what you're reading in the Bible. So the Bible matters, people. However, news from the east and north. Now, the east and the north, is that going to be China? And the north, maybe Russia will frighten him so that he moves out in great fury to ruin and completely do away with many. Finally, when he pitches the tents of his palace between the seas and the mountain of the holy glory, he will come to his end, and no one will help the Antichrist. That's Daniel 11, 40 through 45. So let's look at it and just give you some opinions. Daniel 5 through 31, 11, 5 through 31, accurately documents the troop interactions between the king of the south and the king of the north during the Greek time frames. Okay, so Ptolemy and Seleucid, those fights. Okay, the two major powers that existed to the south and north of Jerusalem after the death of Alexander were Egypt to the south, with its kings referred to as Ptolemy, and Syria to the north, their kings known as Seleucus or Antiochus. And I don't really want to add al-Assad into this mix from Syria right now, But it is interesting to see that Syria or Turkey is involved in that region. So that's Seleucus or Antiochus. The Maccabean Jewish revolt against Antiochus and his generals because they forced the Jewish people to accept the pagan Greek practices, including the abomination of desolation. There is no future abomination of desolation mentioned in Matthew 24:15, Mark 13:14, 1 Thessalonians 2:4, or, there is another abomination of desolation vaguely referred to in those sections in Matthew, Mark, 1 Thessalonians, and Revelation 13. So keep in mind, we'll see another abomination of desolation. And that's happened a few times. So, like you could say, the first time was when Antiochus slaughtered the pig in Jerusalem. But then the second time, you could say, when the second temple fell. But then the third time seems to be a future event. So just keep that in mind. So Daniel 11, 40 through 41, this passage tells us that the king of the north, which will likely be a revival of the Roman Empire, according to this opinion, the fourth kingdom spoken of Daniel 2 and 7, as well as Revelation 17, will successfully counterattack the king of the south. Verses 40 through 43 indicate that in the process he will enter the glorious land, the Holy Land, Israel, and that he will gain control over and have power over the treasuries of gold and silver and over the precious things of Egypt. Okay, sure. The identity of the king of the south. The reign of the Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt came to an end long ago, yet it appears that Egypt will once again either be the king of the south or be aligned with other nations representing this power that will exist in the time of the end before Christ's return. And I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who I cut this out from. This is a commentary, and I'm sorry, I'm spacing off on who it is. I should have cited it. I try hard to cite my sources. So Erdogan is this leader. He is a joker card right now. Really, we don't know what he's going to do. Is he the king of the north? He's kind of in that region, but he should be in Syria maybe too. So according to this picture off to the right-hand side, Syria seems to be it, but maybe the king of the north comes through. And is Putin the king of the north? I don't know, but we're getting closer to figuring out who it's going to be. So in some ways, it could be Turkey because they're due north of Israel, but it also could be Syria. So, and then way on the lower right-hand side, you can see these pathways opening up for other kings of the east to come in and fight and for Armageddon to occur. So it all kind of sets up the king of the north, king of the south, all these other kings, and all these players. But we should start to establish who they are. We should start to get some ideas on who they are. They all factor through like Nimrod and then these different Greek kings that took over. So Ptolemy, Seleucid, things like that. And so I wanted to take you back to Genesis 10 just so you can see one more time. Cush fathered Nimrod, the first powerful ruler on the earth. He was a mighty hunter in the face of Adonai. This is why people said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter in the face of Adonai. His kingdom began with Babel, with Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar, which is a mystical term. Is Putin the real leader? Is it al-Assad? Is it Erdogan? Who's the real king of the north? I don't know. So this is an opinion on the Vilna Gaon again. So that these final days that Istanbul will be involved in this, that this East-West struggle, all 7 churches are listed in Revelation. So this East-West struggle is going to be based in Istanbul, and Hagia Sophia is a major piece of this, okay? And that's ancient Constantinople. It's historically always been important, but it's listed there for a reason in Revelation, the second and the third chapters. So would Putin want to invade it? Possibly. According to the Vilna Gaon, he's going to invade Constantinople. He's going to go after the Hagia Sophia. 1, for religious reasons, because he's an Eastern Orthodox, and 2, because of the oil business. So there's also this big insular air base sitting in Turkey that's the crown jewel. The United States has a ton of nuclear bombers stationed there. So Turkey, the last comment is critical, and I want you to hear this. Turkey is the gateway from the Far East, Near East, and Middle East to Western Europe. No wonder Putin would covet control of Istanbul, and the Islamic Mahdi would seek to wrestle the military assets of the crown jewel of NATO for the Islamic forces of Allah. So, who's the king of the South? Really, the only guy that I can choose right now is Egypt, al-Sisi. I don't think he's a bad guy, but really that's the only one that I can think of that seems to be that southern kingdom. And so Ethiopia factors into it, Sudan, They both factor into it. Libya, as I mentioned before. Here's the other countries. Do you see them off to the side there? Moab, Ammon, and Edom. Those are just off to the south and west of Israel. And so they factor into, Iran factors in, Iran siding with China right now. Sheba and Dedan, that's down in the lower sections of south of Saudi Arabia. So it's just very interesting how all these fights are going to happen. And I wanted to show you on the other side here, all these names for Nimrod, all these various planet names, other god names. It's just very interesting how Nimrod has played through all of eternity. And he'll play through as the king of the north, king of the south, that spiritual aspect of either one. And then I just wanted to get involved in the philosophy behind Putin just a little bit. Alexander Dugin on the lower left-hand side, American liberalism must be destroyed. So there's these clash of civilizations occurring right now. The Hagia Sophia is forcing that clash of civilizations. You've got Russia with their civilization, and they want Eastern Orthodoxy to be the dominant religion. Erdogan wants the caliphate to be the dominant civilization. And so the Hagia Sophia is that meeting point between the East and the West, between Christianity, Orthodox in this case, and Islam, but once again, East versus West. And Dugin is part of this. So this article from Tyler Durden from Zero Hedge is very interesting because he starts to quote more about Alexander Dugin, who is the philosopher behind Putin. And it's very interesting to see these debates that are occurring when Alexander has a Eurasian opinion on how civilization is going to end up. And so I'm stating that behind Putin is Alexander Dugin, but behind the Russian czars were men like Rasputin. So this is Dugin again. The important aspect of the Eurasian worldview is the absolute denial of Western civilization. In the opinion of the Eurasians, the West, with its ideology of liberalism, is an absolute evil, and he hates Jews too. So they believe in the Eurasian takeover of the world, and Putin wants to do that with oil. And he believes that his mystic, his Dugin, will help him to get it done. So this is where we are right now. We seem to be moving closer to the fourth seal. We seem to be moving into this time frame that will take us into the trumpets. It's possible this fall, guys. I'm hearing more prophecies that lead me to believe that we could potentially go in September to November this year. So if that's the case, and part of the case is that we're starting to hear more rumors about asteroids hitting us. There's an asteroid belt coming. If that's the case, that's the first trumpet, but also the sixth seal. And so we'll see. This Nimrod character, these players are going to happen, but this Nimrod character is out there someplace, this Antichrist. We don't know yet who he is, but he pops up, and you really don't see him and acknowledge him until almost the midpoint. He's not going to be that much of a player. He's going to be active doing things, but you're not going to realize he's the Antichrist until the midpoint. He only gets about 3.5 years to do what he does. The two witnesses show up before he arrives, and we start going through the trumpets once they arrive, just after that. So the seals are important. Once again, these are the directions. They're the birth pangs. The birth pangs look a lot like, so in the birth pangs from Matthew 24, look a lot like the seals. Seal 2, 4, 3, 6, yes, they look just like it. What would happen in seal 4 is going to be these 4 things that kill 1.9444 billion deaths. Then seal 5, martyrdom. Seal 6 is burning figs coming down from the sky like Sodom and Gomorrah and an earthquake. And that's the end of the video. Be blessed. Take care. Prepare, guys. Prepare your hearts. Prepare in prayer, and be prepared for the fall. It could be wild. Amen.